We are live, more or less, if you count life support. With Mark Anthony, I'm Rick Rosen. This is good sports. I don't know what isn't life support. I think lunch is life support if you really think about it. But all right, they're starting with some things are actually on life support. First off, Mark, I want to. This is somebody that we both know, and I'm not sure you are aware that you know this man, but Coach Monty Williams was the coach of the New Orleans Pelicans, the head coach. He was assistant coach with the Oklahoma City Thunder. They played last night. They played each other a day or two ago. Monty Williams' wife was involved in a horrific car wreck and passed away. And our thoughts and prayers are to Monty Williams. Monty Williams is the guy who, a former NBA player, who we see all the time, Mark, at Basketball USA, and he's the one that takes the guys one-on-one during the drills. And one time it's Kobe Bryant, one time it's LeBron James, the next guy that comes up in line is Russell Westbrook, and on and on and on. Yeah. Monty Williams is the guy that's out there defending them. And a really nice man. He asked me for some photos of him, and I sent them to him. And like I say, just a really, really nice man, and God bless him and his family. I believe his wife and he had 5 children, and they're now without their wife and mother, and a tough time. Yeah, I don't care what time it is of the year. It's tough to lose somebody in the prime of their life. Yes. But Valentine's Day, and So anyway, our thoughts and prayers out to the Williams family, and God bless. And when I understand, she was a woman of deep faith, and that will serve her well on this next journey. So
that is true.
Anyhow, I just want to put out there, Super Bowl's done. Yeehaw. And as I got a note from you, Mark. Yeah, I told him so. I did say, and it's hard not to crow a little bit, but. Every time, if you look at the regular season, they put this bye week in the schedule now. Every time a team comes off their bye week, improves much more so than their offense does. Now, it gives teams a chance to get somebody back healthy that may have been, dinged up or whatever, and just needs that extra week to get well, to be able to use a leg or a hand or whatever that might be dinged up. But the defenses seem to make much better progress than the offenses do. And I think a lot of that has to do with you have 2 weeks to prepare for your opponent. So it's amplified. And I think that Wade Phillips is probably one of the greatest defensive coordinators to ever walk on the football field. First, he's a really nice man. He's very self-effacing. He's not the Buddy Ryan in-your-face kind of guy. But, man, he has done himself real proud. He was out of football a year ago. And when Gary Kubiak took over the Denver Broncos, the head coaching job for the Denver Broncos, he asked Wade Phillips to come out of retirement and be the defensive coordinator. And they won a Super Bowl for his trouble. Wade Phillips, if you remember back a few years, was the defensive coordinator at San Diego. And Sean Merriman as his 2 big studs, man, and they destroyed people. They just absolutely ate people up, and that's exactly what this Denver defense did. And but I think that bye week, that second week of prep time that they have between the championship games and the Super Bowl really, really served Denver well. And I said, they're going to come up with a way to defense Cam Newton and make him do the things that he doesn't necessarily like to do, and that's and Cam Newton has not done himself well. If it wasn't for Johnny Manziel, he'd be the biggest jackass quarterback in the NFL. But but now we are at that time, Mark, where people look back and they'll reflect on last season and look ahead to this next season. Next season, the Rams will be back in Los Angeles. Maybe the world will regain some of its proper spin that way. That's where the Rams are supposed to be, not St. Louis. St. Louis should maybe have had the Cardinals, which started in Chicago. But anyhow, the Rams are back to Los Angeles, and the Chargers are probably soon to follow. I don't know if the Raiders will make it to Las Vegas or not. It's going to take some definite pulling heads out of asses in the NFL do not, Mark, as you know, we've been on the air long enough to know that I'm not big on hypocrites in the least. And I think it is so incredibly hypocritical of the NFL to have all their popularity and all their billions and billions and billions of dollars. The damn Dallas Cowboys are worth close to $2 billion as a franchise. And it is not because the Dallas Cowboys are such an entertaining team to watch. It's because people can bet on football. It lends itself to wagering. Basketball, baseball does not necessarily, because it's just there's so much to do with the umpires and the unwritten rules and all this nonsense. Hockey, one goal, one breakaway, one guy loses his blade on the ice, and it can change the entire complexion of the game, the outcome. In football, there's more. You have more chances to make up for errors, et cetera, et cetera. And it is just one of those things. For whatever reason, football lends itself to being cool to bet on, and now they've bashed halftime betting and in-place betting and during the game betting, and you can bet on whether the next play, if the right guard's going to cut a fart that stinks. Yep. You can bet on anything, all these props and everything, but it is popular betting, and. Now, the NFL just is, I think the issue is going to be forced. Policy on marijuana. They have to. You can't suspend your stars for doing something that's legal or a good number. That's, nobody cares. I'm standing waiting for the bus, and half the time there's somebody smoking something. You smell you smell it as it goes by. I don't know if it'll flunk me on a drug test, but it's enough to where you know what the hell they're doing. And the NFL doesn't mind populating themselves and being proud of all these kids that come out of this culture, and they're millions and millions and billions of dollars off of them, and then don't acknowledge the fact that this is reality. And that's what we're talking about with gambling. So Sheldon Adelson wants to build a stadium here in Las Vegas and be the home to the Raiders. Las Vegas has always been a Raiders town. There are other fans from other places or whatever, but I think the biggest concentration outside of California, it's Raider Nation, and that brand of football, that mystique that the Raiders have, and have always had, even in the losing crappy times, there were always Raiders. Nobody else on earth, no other franchise has a black hole that doesn't have Homeland Security embedded in it. They're proud. You can go to the Raiders game and see people dressed up as medieval warriors, and they so it's just a different thing there, and it's too bad for Oakland, but they are a depressed economy up there, and they don't have the money really to spend on simply a stadium, where Las Vegas does. It would help. So this makes sense on so many levels. It's gonna be across the street from UNLV. If they bring the stadium that the Rebels can play in to the campus, then that football team will absolutely explode onto the scene and could very soon work towards a national championship, or at least be in the hunt for a national championship. Playing out there in damn near Arizona doesn't work. The Raiders need a home. The Rebels need a home. There are so many events that we could host. We have a good bowl game. It's the highest rated second tier bowl game, but they're out there. They're not near the strip. There, you can't see anything from out there except it's the Silver Bowl, and in its time it had its value. It has very, very limited value, particularly to college football right now. So I think there's plenty of good for this. There's people were talking, when it was going to be the soccer stadium, Mark, I railed against it. I said that's ridiculous to spend any public money on this arena. Anywhere else that's going to be for soccer, it's not going to work. Football works. The Raiders work. The Running Rebels work in a stadium. Other things. Imagine the National Finals Rodeo, taking it out of the Thomas and Mack and putting it in a football stadium. That makes sense. You can go from end to end. calf roping and all those types of things. I think it lends itself to a lot of things that is uniquely Las Vegas. And I think it's a good idea. And however much money it's going to take, I think Sheldon's got it in pocket change. And, you know, whatever the negotiations are, they said, we'll try for $1 billion and see where we go. And I think there's going to be some public money, but I think it would be money well spent.
Well, you know, that's what I'm on board with, because yes, they threw out this huge number and said, you know, we want 70% public financing, but that's a starting point. That's, you know, this is a negotiation. Sheldon didn't become a billionaire by being stupid. Having that where they want it works for so many different reasons, with or without an NFL team. But for the UNLV, perfect place for it. For all the other events that Sam Boyd Stadium is used for, perfect place for it. Right size, right place. Okay, traffic might be a little bit of a bitch, but you know, anything that goes in there is going to enhance Vegas's image. You know, and anything that can help.
Absolutely.
Anything that can help the UNLV football team, go for it. And the one thing nobody's talking about is the value of the land that Sam Boyd Stadium is sitting on, what they can sell that for.
Oh, absolutely. It would be a great place for a different airport, you know, instead of moving it out to Gene or Prim or whatever. No, you're right, Mark. There's lots of different uses for it. And you know, maybe they will say, okay, what we get in proceeds from the sale of that we'll put towards this new arena or whatever. But I think this will pay for itself time and time again. And particularly if you think it's 2 blocks, 3 blocks from the Strip, you can see the big wheel, the observation, the sex wheel. Is that what they're calling it now? The world's largest sex swing. That story was humorous, if nothing else. And just to take a moment, you know that the guy's girlfriend bailed him out, not the woman that he was tasting her Girl Scout cookies.
Oh my God! Really?
His girlfriend bailed him out, and boy, that's an understanding woman. You know, he's going to have to go to Kobe Bryant and say, okay, now how do we work this out? How do I keep the one that bailed me out? And it's Valentine's Day, and I don't have $5 million to get her a ring. So, but that was just you know, it was only a question of time. You have half an hour. Nobody can get in or get out. They can't climb up to you. They can't do anything. You know, whether it's the alcohol or whatever it was, you know, but what an understanding woman, and God bless her. I think that speaks highly of her. Unless she bailed him out just to beat the crap out of him. You know, you worthless son of a bitch. You know, those kind of things.
I think
some people would rather be left. Some people would be rather left in jail than bailed out. You know, kids, we're going to call your dad and have him come get you out of jail. Nope, oh God, don't. No, just let me rot. No, thanks. I'll plead guilty to anything. Just don't call my dad. So I don't know exactly what the dichotomy of the thing is, or the, you know, the whole insides. But speaking of whole insides, I have to have another damn colonoscopy in March. They did one. And folks, if you have a colonoscopy scheduled, or you're worried about getting a colonoscopy, get it. It's nothing. The worst part of it is the prep for it, and it just makes you have really insane diarrhea for a day. And it's, you know, I mean, it's water. It's not like it's not painful. Nothing hurt. And the worst thing the thing I hate the most out of the deal is, where's the camera? They always put the IV in the back of your hands there.
Yeah. And
that's where I used to get chemotherapy, Mark. And, you know, in the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I guess, the weekend of the race will be my 23rd anniversary for my cancer surgery. But I used to hate that most about chemotherapy, no matter how sick I got or anything else. That needle in the back of this hand is just not a place where it's okay. I can poke myself in the fingers. It doesn't matter. And I used to say, how come we can't do it in my arm like normal? Well, if we screw it up in your hand, then we can move up to your wrist. And if we screw it up there, then we can move up to your, I said, listen, don't screw up. Just start in my arm, and you haven't screwed up yet. I'll take it off. No, they wouldn't do it. So they always got me in the back of the hand, and it just feels sting. But that's absolutely the worst part of the colonoscopy, other than the going through a couple of rolls of Charmin. So it's not bad, but because they found polyps, and they are always what they call that's why they take them out. From what I understand from the doctor, they found one right near the exit ramp, and that one came out rather mundanely. The other one was much further up near where used to be my appendix, unless it's grown back, and they destroyed it getting it out, and so they couldn't do the pathology on it. There was not enough left to figure out what it was. So they're going to have to go back in and look a second time and make sure they got everything and do all that. So I guess it's err on the side of caution, which you don't really have a viable option as far as I'm concerned. So speaking of colonoscopies, the NFL is going to have to get rid of some of their polyps too, and not the least of which is Johnny Manziel. One of the most accurate descriptions or names I've ever, Roger Goodell is such an attorney who gives other attorneys a bad name, which is difficult to do, but he has single-handedly done that. But Johnny Manziel, one very derisive nickname for him, they call him Johnny Football. He won the Heisman Trophy as a freshman at Texas A&M, rightfully or wrongfully. He won it. I didn't get a vote. I don't think I would have voted for him. I think there was more, but he was the guy that got the press and had the name and the blah, blah, blah. He got it much more on reputation than he did on actual on-field productivity. But somebody called him Johnny College Football, and I think that's very appropriate. Robert Griffin III was a tremendous college athlete, and for the longest time, the Heisman Trophy was not indicative of any kind of NFL success. It really was probably O.J. Simpson that broke the mold of Heisman busts in the pros. Paul Hornung won the Heisman, and he was the golden boy, and he came from Notre Dame, and luckily went with the Green Bay Packers, and he never was that breakout star on the Packers. A lot of that might have had to do with Vince Lombardi and the philosophy that they had to win all their championships. But Johnny Manziel, certainly did the words from across the Johnny Manziel is going to be a star in the NFL, actually be able to help a very, very, very moribund Cleveland Brown to come out of the fog. They have never done that since. Bill Nelson was the last quarterback to lead them to a championship, and that was before they had Super Bowls. I think it was 1964. Lyndon Johnson was the president when the Browns won their last championship. So, and I could not see they would have been much better off trading for a guy or getting somebody that has proven that they at least know the way around. And they instead wasted their picks on Johnny Manziel instead of an offensive line or some defensive guys that can rush and this and that. So Manziel beat up his girlfriend, hit her so hard that he ruptured her eardrum, and I think he's probably gonna spend some time in jail from this, and hopefully he gets his life together. I don't think he's a bad guy. He's a guy that got a lot of money and lived on that fame, much like Cam Newton. He's not I don't think they get it about how fortunate they are and how much they've been blessed, and that there's not a whole hell of a lot of difference between them and the guy coming back from Afghanistan with no legs or something like that. That it's just by the grace of God that they get to play in the NFL and not to play in the fields of Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever it is that people are shooting at you and wanting to kill you. So some guys get it and some guys don't. And Anquan Boldin was the NFL's Man of the Year, and he does so many things for the community and uses his fame to help others, and I think that's the way to go. And these guys don't get it. Cam Newton, proved himself to be a jerk. I don't know that he's as big a jerk as is being portrayed, but he certainly didn't do himself any favors. But on the other hand, here's a guy with a whole bunch of millions of dollars who may have cost himself a whole bunch of millions of dollars, but let's go back. He already has a whole bunch of millions of dollars. It's not like he was on food stamps and living paycheck to paycheck and screwed himself out of millions. He's not the guy that lost the $63 million lottery ticket in California. You know, he's the guy who screwed up, and I appreciate the fact that guys are bad losers. They don't like to lose. Kyle Busch hates to lose more than he likes to win. He absolutely despises losing. And Pete Rose absolutely despises losing. So those are the guys that become champions because of that. But that does not mean just because you hate losing doesn't mean you should be a bad loser. And I think that's how Cam Newton came across in the Super Bowl. And I think the one play where the fumble was on the ground, they still had a chance, not a good chance, but they still had a legitimate chance of doing something and making it a game. And we've seen games in this season in particular. You look at Green Bay and Detroit, the Hail Mary, and there were several games like that during this NFL season. And the ball was on the ground, and Newton said, well, I was afraid of getting hurt. Well, what the hell were you saving yourself for? The next week? The next big game down the road? And guys and especially when you play with guys that are in the trenches, those guys get hit. It's a car wreck every single play on the offensive and defensive line. It is, receivers. You send a receiver across the middle, and you expect them to catch one of those passes that you throw up by their heads instead of down on the ground where they don't get drilled, and they're expected to make the catch. Okay, we need the 10 yards. We need the first down. Go get the ball. And, they've got guys the size of small cars that are coming at full speed to hit them, and they're expected to take it. And Cam Newton didn't put himself in the same position as he has put others. I think it's going to cost him down the road. I don't think his teammates are going to play as hard for him as they would for other people. I think you look, Peyton Manning's people play real knocked down, and he might go back in the huddle and say, hey, keep that big SOB off of me from now on. But he doesn't do it in public. And he doesn't, he doesn't take his teammates to task for it or whatever. And I think guys play hard for guys like that. Guys used to play very, very hard for Brett Favre because they knew he was playing hard for them.
Right.
And if you look at John Elway, the guy who's now the president of the Broncos, and congratulations to the Broncos. They played a hell of a game, and they made they had some ups and downs in the season. They did without their starting quarterback and still earned the #1 seed, thanks to New England screwing up. But that got them to the Super Bowl, and they get to wave the trophy. And it's one thing when you're when you're a second stringer and you don't like to, you run out of bounds or whatever. And Ted Ginn didn't do himself any favors. Ginn heads for the sideline. Ginn runs out of bounds. Ginn does this out of bounds. Well, it's the Super Bowl, man. Stay in bounds and get that extra yard. It may come in handy. And when you have guys that are on your team that are getting the crap beat out of them on every play, and you look around and you got prima donnas back behind you, and you say, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I giving up my body? Why am I limping? Why am I unable to get out of bed on Monday morning? And this SOB's are at a nightclub or doing whatever because he ran out of bounds or he didn't jump on a fumble or whatever. So it cost the Carolina Panthers in the long run. Speaking of cost for football, Mark, as I said, the Super Bowl indicates the start of the free agency, and they a whole bunch more attorneys involved in the deal than we had before. And there's some interesting names. Teams get this franchise tag, they call it, meaning you're a free agent and I don't want to lose you, and we can't agree on terms for a new contract. So we give you the franchise tag, meaning we're gonna pay you the average of the top 3 salaries at your position, or 5 salaries, they average, whatever it is. And we're going to give that to you and keep you locked up for 1 year. And then hopefully we can work out a deal where we can work out a long-term contract. Von Miller is a free agent for the Denver Broncos, as is Brock Osweiler, the guy that is the heir apparent to Peyton Manning in Denver, the guy who kept them in games and won some games, beat Pittsburgh, beat New England, did some things that are necessary to do to say, okay, I can play in this league, an unrestricted free agent. Well, they only have one, so they can either work and pay him as he deserves, the Super Bowl MVP, who certainly earned his keep, or can use it on Brock Osweiler. So they're going to have to get one of them locked up. They're going to have to deal with, one of the two devils, and the other one's going to get the franchise tag almost assuredly. They cannot afford to lose either of them. But other teams are in some trouble with some of the free agents and some of the things they're going to have to do, and they release guys that they certainly would like to have on their team, but the attorneys got involved and worked this out and that out, and contract negotiations, the NFLPA, and all this other stuff. And guys now get to kind of choose where they want to go. If you're tired of working at Target, you can go to Walmart, or vice versa. In the NFL, they said you should be able to do that. So they've worked this into the contract where you have this free agency. And now they have restricted free agents and unrestricted free agents and pending free, not so free agents, and all kinds of crap, all kinds of designations. But it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. And I think there are going to be some huge changes to some teams. Some teams procrastinate on these deals and say, okay, we want to win now. Well, there's only one Super Bowl champion every year. And there's probably 10 or 12 teams that mortgage their future for let's win it right now. Well, not all of them can be right. And the Cowboys come to mind. They do that a lot, and then they have to restructure contracts or lose guys. They lost DeMarcus Ware to that kind of deal. We want to win it now. Well, Tony Romo goes down, and they don't have the season they wanted, and DeMarcus Ware leaves. It ends up with Denver, and now he's got the trophy. So I think there's going to be some things that people don't see coming. When teams, this is when they start releasing. Two-time All-Pro, three-time All-Pro released, meaning they didn't want to pay him the $15 million or $16 million or whatever it is guaranteed. But somebody's going to get cut, and it's for teams to be able to stretch out a signing bonus as opposed to paying them or having to count just 1 year of salary towards their deal. I think Colin Kaepernick is in the free agent list. Robert Griffin is certainly a guy that I doubt he's ever going to play with Washington again, but is a viable. Maybe he's learned, and this is not something you just come out of college and they say, oh, those smart guys. God, we've got a team full of seniors, juniors, and seniors, upperclassmen in college, and they all make these great decisions, and then they get to the pros and they're just raw rookies. And they just have somebody to shove their head right back in their ass, and that's how they play for the first couple of years. There's very few guys that come in and have any kind of impact. Running backs probably are the exception to that rule, and maybe a receiver now and again. But running backs have that thing that they do, and they don't have a great deal of not near the learning curve that other positions do coming into the NFL. So. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out, Mark. Have you heard about the changes to NASCAR, by the way?
That's what I wanted to move into. This is just really weird. Hit me with it. What the hell is this franchise?
All right. Well, we were talking about NFL franchises. They've had teams and team owners and this and that, and you got Joe Gibbs Racing and Jack Roush Racing and Hendrick Racing and Newman Haas or Stuart Haas Racing, and they're team owners and they have teams and blah blah blah. Well, everybody had to go through qualifying, and if you're not in the top 35, you don't get to qualify. You have to qualify. You don't get automatic in on points and this and that. And they've said this is kind of convoluted, and we can do this a different way. So now, what they've basically done is said, you can have up to 4 cars in your franchise, much like there's a Denver Broncos, there's a Hendricks Motorsports, and now it is a franchise, and it can be traded or sold, and so there's value to the team rather than just their equipment and their contracts. And there will only be 4 cars. They've gone from 43 starters to 40, meaning we won't see Morgan Shepherd anymore. God bless him. The guy's like 90 years old. Joe Nemechek will probably not be in many more NASCAR races. You may see some former champions. Bobby Labonte's going to be in the Daytona 500, even though he's retired. He's certainly going to try to qualify and make the Daytona 500. So I think you're going to see some guys. Maybe it's some guys it's going to work for, some guys it's not. But there are now franchises, and you can have a maximum of 4 teams. And so there's going to be 4 wild card teams that qualify their way in every week. Well, they're not going to park and ride. They can't afford to do that anymore. That was an embarrassment. That was an embarrassment for us. That was an embarrassment for NASCAR. That was an embarrassment, man. To know the guy's going to go 10 laps and get in somebody's way and put other people's lives at jeopardy because they're going 30 miles an hour faster than him on a super speedway, and he can't get out of the way, and they can't, they need the space that he's occupying for no good reason other than to just start and get a paycheck. So they've eliminated that. I don't think it's a perfect system, Mark, but I think it's probably it's time that it's come to that, and I think some of the other sports organizations may follow very quickly, because if a team, if something happens and a team goes out of business, as Kurt Busch says, you get dimes on the dollar for your equipment. And your sponsorships is where all the money is, and so they've kind of taken that out of the equation somewhat. You're still going to need sponsors, and you're still going to need this and that, but I think you're going to see a pretty decent change. The other changes big to NASCAR, not necessarily the Cup people, is that they're going to have a chase format for both the truck racing, the Camping World Truck Series, and the Xfinity Series is now going to have the same format at the end to a lesser extent, but still they're going to qualify and eliminate some people out and cut it down and have a playoff system like has worked so well for the Sprint Cup. When it started, Mark, I was not a big fan of this new format, but I have warmed to it greatly. I think it does add excitement. It does make it a pretty legitimate thing. They do have a playoff, and it's winner take all, and that's cool. So
yeah.
Anyway, Tony Stewart not going to be in the Daytona 500. He's never won the Daytona 500. God, he's won everything else. He's very similar to how Dale Earnhardt was. He'd won so many times. The leader of winning races at Daytona. He just never won the Daytona 500 until a couple years before it killed him there, trying to win it again. But now Tony Stewart, in his final year, broke his back in a dune buggy accident, and he was out there tooling around with Greg Biffle and Jeff Gordon, and he come off a hill on a dune and landed hard. And it's unfortunate he didn't have Dr. Sicking's apparatus underneath that dune buggy, or he'd have been just fine. But it broke his lower back. It's called a burst fracture in his L1 lumbar, which is right down there by your tailbone. Oof. And it broke that, and surgery to fix it. It's certainly questionable whether he will be able to race here in Las Vegas. A lot of fans would like to see Tony Stewart race again, and I don't think they're going to get the opportunity to. He'll come back, and he may try to do what Kyle Busch did and miss a few races and be able to come back. Although it's a bit different. Kyle Busch was hurt at a race, and it happened to be the day before the Daytona 500, and so he made his way back in, but he was hurt racing. Tony Stewart was hurt in a dune buggy, and it would have been the same. What if he'd hurt his back hang gliding or playing basketball or something like that? I think it's a little different, but I think because of what Tony Stewart has done and means to NASCAR itself and everything, they will accommodate him and say, okay, if you make the top 30, and maybe they'll name the Busch the rule, the Kyle Busch rule. From now on, if you there's some extenuating circumstances and you fight your way back in and can do it on your own with only half a season or whatever it was, much like Kyle did last year. He spent more than a 4 sidelines and still came back to force his way into the championship and force his way to get to hold the trophy. So
he did.
It's unfortunate for us here, and I will say this: a friend of ours, Mark, that we are dealing with through our Vegas bets, is a man named Nick Pastura, who is the guy that does quite a few of the helmets, customizes them, and he does helmets, and what a great job the guy does. And he was doing a special thing with Tony Stewart. He had some kind of thing he was working on to have a different helmet, I believe, for every race for Tony Stewart. And they were going to do some charity things and this and that. Well, now that's been sidelined. You don't need to wear a helmet, But Stewart's a tough old guy, and he'll be back. And he hasn't been the same for the last 2 or 3 years. He broke his leg in a sprint car wreck, and then the next year he was involved in the on-track incident that killed Kevin Ward.
Right.
And these things have all taken a lot out of Tony Stewart, and it's unfortunate. He's been a great champion and a great racer and a great friend of all types of auto racing. And, it's not the way you would hope he would get to go out. It's not like Peyton Manning getting Elway on out of here. And
That's
God,
right.
I hope Manning doesn't play somewhere else. I hope he just waves goodbye and rides off into the sunset and eats Papa John's and drinks Budweiser until he's old and fat and happy. He deserves it. But Stewart deserves better than this kind of exit from racing. Go ahead.
Now we have we have the Boyd Gaming 300 is on Saturday, March 3rd, correct? And
the what?
And, the Boyd Gaming 300 is on Saturday. It's the first Saturday in March.
Yeah.
And then that's followed by the Cobalt 400.
Right.
What else happens on that Saturday?
And it's Saturday the 5th, and that's St. Baldrick's Day, Mark, and at several locations in Las Vegas. We're going to go to, I'm going to go to McMullen's, get my head shaved. Last year, Brendan Gaughan cut my hair there on pit road following the Xfinity race, and one of the coolest things I've had happen to me. And Brendan's such a good cat. He's a guy. Here's a guy who may benefit from this franchise thing. He has sponsors. He has his dad in South Point Casino as the sponsors and those kind of things. So Brendan may, he's a hell of a racer. He's a hell of a competitor, and he may benefit. But St. Baldrick's Day is the 5th of March, immediately following the Xfinity race, and just before daylight saving starts. I don't know, it's somebody must be laughing. I don't know who it is, but say, okay, we'll have that race weekend, and then we'll take 1 hour out of the party. We want to save all the rednecks from drinking too much and partying too much in Vegas. So they take 1 of the hours out.
Why are you having your head shaved? Why are you having your head shaved?
It is to for solidarity with the kids that are going through cancer treatment. And just to raise funds for childhood cancer research. As I mentioned, Nick Pastura, if he is in town, Mark, and now it has somewhat changed up his plans with Tony Stewart being injured. Nick Pastura has offered to paint my head much like he would a helmet once I get this what remains of my hair shaved off. And let me see. If I turn like this, I seem to have a head start on that. Yeah. And I like the fact that it's in the shape of a light bulb. I think that's indicative of my
curly Q light bulb.
But
okay.
Anyhow, that's it's one of the coolest things that I've done. It's one of the most humbling things you can do.
It is.
March 5th, I get my head shaved for childhood cancer research. March 6th would have been my 40th anniversary. And as you know, I was married for 32 years and got divorced because I didn't like her boyfriend as much as she did. March 7th will be my 23rd anniversary of my breast cancer surgery, Mark. So it all kind of bing, bing, bing. It's one big cool thing to do. And, it doesn't take much to look around and see a kid and who has either survived cancer or is going through, and one of the cruelest illnesses you've ever heard of is to think of what a kid must go through to have their, man, if that doesn't steal your childhood from you, I don't know what does. To have to know that you may die. And, Mark, one of the cool things that I've gotten to do as a photographer and as a radio guy is the people at the Speedway knew that I was a cancer survivor, and they used to let me do the Make-A-Wish things for the kids because I offered to do it. Not everybody wanted to do it. And I offered to do it, and I would go get to spend just a little bit of quality time with the kids that were going through. And one of the young men, he was 8 years old, and Dale Jarrett was still UPS car. This kid was a big Jarrett. That's what his wish was. And they brought him to Las Vegas, and he was from Ohio. And they brought him to Las Vegas, and he had brain cancer, and he'd had already a couple surgeries. And he wanted to meet Dale Jarrett. And so they had arranged it, and it was the day of the race, and it was maybe an hour and a half before the race, Mark. And we went to Jarrett's Holler, and he came out, and he sat there. And Dale Jarrett's a pretty big boy for an auto racer. He's a good sized man. And I was not necessarily a real big fan of his. I liked his dad better, and I didn't like him because he was pissed off at Jeff Gordon a lot. So, but anyhow, Dale Jarrett sat this young man on his lap, and the kid was looking up at his sunglasses, and Dale Jarrett took off his and traded them for the little kid's 99-cent store, you know, sunglasses, and he sat there and played little race cars with this kid and just talked with him and read a little book to him, and it was a racing book, and it was the kid's favorite book, and one of the most touching things I've ever witnessed and been able that I've been fortunate enough to be involved with and take photos of. And the kid's mom used to send me articles about his recovery, and then sent me a note one day that he'd had a setback and was going to have more surgery. And I lost touch with him, and I haven't heard anything since. And but when you look in your heart and you think, oh my God, here is a child who people tell him, well, you know, you have to do this or you're going to die. I don't know that the kids have the capacity to understand death and the finality of it, at least here on Earth. And it's, man, it just tears your heart out. What can I do? One of the things you can do is cut your damn hair. You get your head shaved, and you wear your little green bracelet, and you might show it. You wear your little green bracelet, and it says St. Baldrick's Day, conquer childhood cancer. And that's exactly what it's about. And the fine folks at McMullen's Irish Pub, McMullen, who lost their daughter to childhood cancer, has about as much as you can buy in to this fight against childhood cancer. Tomorrow, out at Town Square, Mark, is the Leprechaun deal, the world's largest gathering of leprechauns. Yep. And if you can get out there, I think it's 8:00 in the morning. Are we going to do a broadcast from there, Mark? I'm up for it if you are.
Not a broadcast, but we will be there for photo and video, and maybe some interviews.
Well, anyway, that's out at Town Square, and if you can make it, folks, make it. It's Leprechaun, CON. LEPRE-CON, and you can certainly call McMullen's Irish Pub and ask them details. I don't know if you're able to put that up on our site, Mark.
It'll be up there
somewhere. Okay, somewhere over here in my stuff. I still have my Super Bowl goodies here, but I didn't eat them all. There you go. There you go. Come on, get out here. I'll tell you what it says here. It says, too bad this isn't a two-sided card or I'd be able to read it. A leprechaun, gather, walk, run. It is, your registration includes a leprechaun costume. You can do the 5K, the 1 mile, or the Irish jig. Commemorative medal, live music, beer garden, finish line expo. Activities, 9 a.m. the race starts, and party till noon. Register today, lepra-con.org. And again, it's conquering childhood cancer, one leprechaun at a time. And I believe they're trying to set the world record for the largest number of leprechauns. So everybody's dressed up in their hats and their stuff and their beards, and it ought to be cool. And if you want to feel better about yourself, I don't care what kind of scumbag you are. Or not, get your head shaved, volunteer and do something for childhood cancer. I guarantee you it'll make you feel better about yourself, and it'll make a difference to a kid. If your hair is long enough, 9 inches long or longer, it's long enough to make a wig for a kid going through a chemotherapy or cancer. The entire gamut. I mean, my God, the radiation and all those things that shouldn't happen to a kid happen to kids. And they're saving a hell of a lot more than they were. And St. Baldrick's is one of the great organizations that gives damn near every penny they can to the research. I mean, they use the bare minimum of money to print and do things, and they get so many things that are there you go. That's awesome. They do so many things that are donated to them, so they don't have to use any of the money that they collect, except for the fact that it goes to childhood cancer research and make more kids survivors than die of childhood cancer. And they're making great strides. I thought it was tremendous during the State of the Union address, and I don't care what if you're political or not, I don't care what you think about the current president or any other kind of politics, I don't care. One of the things that they said was exactly like what Kennedy said, is we want to eliminate cancer. The war on cancer should go. It should be a top priority. It kills many more Americans than gun violence, many more people than anything else, except for maybe heart disease, if I'm not mistaken, Mark.
Right.
It certainly kills more than auto wrecks and gun violence and all those things. And yet we tend to put it on the back burner until it hits us. And then everybody wants, oh my God, now what can I do? Well, you should have done something 5 years ago. We might have had the cure by now.
Yeah.
Instead of pissing away your money, giving it to some schmuck who's running for Congress who may or may not give a damn. Give your money to something that's going to be worthwhile. And one of the places you can do that is St. Baldrick's Day and McMullen's Irish Pub. And we hope to see you there on the 5th. We hope tomorrow at Town Square for Leprechaun. And if you can make it and don't, okay, that's on you. But if you can make it, please do so. It will be greatly appreciated, and I guarantee it will go to a good end. Speaking of a good end, Mark, I guess it's about time for us to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Where I got to iron my Leprechaun stuff. And all right, you're going to be out there at 8 in the morning?
8 a.m., bright and early. Not awake.
Right. Kind of depends. Depends on how the bus runs.
I am not guaranteeing I'll be awake,
also.
but I will be there.
All right, I'll stop for coffee. So, I guess that's it. Like I say, free agency, Super Bowl's over, baseball right around the corner, big league weekend coming up here in March. I believe it's March 18th at Cashman Field. The Mets and the Cubs squaring off in the last couple of exhibition games for each team.
Cool.
Certainly both made it to made the playoffs last year, and we get to see them in Vegas before they go. It's maybe Bryce Harper would be perfect, but you get to see Bryant, the kid from Chris Bryant from Las Vegas, the rookie of the year, now playing with the Cubs. You get to see that great pitching staff from the Mets team. So you get to see those guys that have made it up to. What a great weekend it is out there. There are seats available, but if you wait till March 17th to buy tickets, there's a lot of sellouts, and what a great time. It's always great weather. I mean, what a showcase.
Right
and so all right, Mark, any last words for us?
Let's go out and have fun this weekend, shall we?
Let's do it. All right. I appreciate it. And folks, for Mark Anthony, For Mark Anthony, I'm Rick Rosen, and you have been listening to Good Sports, and we appreciate that you do that. And again, we'll see you tomorrow out there at Town Square for Leprechaun. We'll see you on March 5th for St. Baldrick's, right after the Xfinity race at the Speedway, and we will definitely see you on March 6th at the Speedway for the Cup race, whether Tony Stewart's there or not. For all of us here, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.